In this video, we're going to create an announcement graphic. In particular, my announcement is going to be a new blog post. Now, an announcement graphic is exactly what it sounds like. It's a beautiful way to let your audience know exactly what's new with you. So, the first thing we're going to do is pick out our dimension. And that's going to depend on the end use of this graphic. For example, if I want it to be a square format that eventually gets placed in pretty much any social media, but will definitely work for Instagram because they only use square format, I would probably go with this 800 by 800 pixel folder. Now all the folders, all the dimensions are in the folder name. So that should really help you out. Now that I've got my dimension picked out, I go to canva.com. Now, if you've already made your profile, all you have to do now is create that canvas. And I could do that by taking this little shortcut here. You see we have some pre-sized canvases, but there is a little bit of a twist to this. So we actually need to go over here to use custom dimensions, and I'll explain why in just a few minutes. But we do want to add 10 pixels to each size of whatever dimension you picked out. So since mine is 800, I'm going to make it 810 by 810. And we've got our canvas. Perfect. Over here on the left, we have our toolbar. What we want is the Uploads tab. Just go ahead and click on that. And this green button up here is the one you're going to use to upload all of your files. So for this one in particular, what we're going to use is our PNG files. I believe we picked this Instagram one and the PNG toy box in particular. We're going to use those loose elements to create a graphic from scratch. Okay, and what we want is the single frame elements. So I can just grab this one, but if I want to give myself some options, I might upload 2 at a time. You can batch select in Canva, which is really convenient. I'm just holding down the command key and picking this other single frame here. And you know what, while I'm in here, why don't I grab some text placeholders too? How about I grab these round ones? I could do that again by holding down the command key on my Mac, and you could hold control key on your PC. Or alternatively, I can hold shift on either. The only problem with that is that it selects everything in the middle as well. But anyway, once you've got your desired element selected, you would just hit the open button. However, I've already got mine up so that you guys don't have to wait for them to upload. And whatever it is that you upload is going to end up right here. And after those are all done, you would go back to the green button and grab your photograph. Now, you feel free to grab from the folder that I provided, the folder of photographs, but it's always fun when you play with your own stuff. For example, I've got this one photo that I took just outside of Hong Kong, and I love this one. I'm sorry if I use it a little too much. Now, you see that Canva sized it down just a little bit, and it gave us a little frame around the greatest edge. Now there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that in just a little while. What you don't want to see is a photo that has a greater edge. So something, or a photo that has a greater space rather between that and the edges, because that means that your photo is small, and the greater that you size it, the more pixelated it will get. So try to find a larger photo. I know that's not always an option, but I just want you to know the potential risks with using something that's small. Now I can size this as big as I want, and I'm using these round control points on the corners. What I'm also using is these purple lines that kind of run across the middle. They'll tell me when my image is perfectly centered. Right now I'm centered vertically and horizontally. That is excellent. All I have to do now is pick out my frame. Can use either one of these two. I think I'll go with a beige. Excellent. And I'll do the same thing to size it up, but here is where I'll show you why Canva doesn't let things run all the way to the edge unless it's the background. So I'm sizing this to full size and letting go, and pop! That has locked into the background, which is bad news for us because we want the frame to sit over our photo. So let's undo. We can either click this reverse arrow here, or Command Z on a Mac and Control Z on a PC. Phew, okay, good. We've got our frame back. So now let's size it up but let's do so very carefully. We want to leave at least a sliver on at least one edge. So it doesn't have to be all the edges. It can be just one and you'll be fine. It won't lock into place. Okay, and I'm using my arrow keys just to get it a little more precise. Perfect. Now that little bit of a sliver doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, we have to live with it because of the way that Canva is built and the way that it operates. But we can use tons of free software to crop it off later. One of my favorites is actually iPiccy. That's IPICCY.com. I use that to crop everything if I don't have Photoshop or Illustrator on hand. You really don't need anything fancy. Alrighty, so we've got our foundation. All we need now is to add some info, right? That's what this is all about. So let's get some text placeholders in place. I will grab this red one so that we have some nice contrast. I'm going to bring that into place by just dragging it. And again, I'm going to grab this corner control point to resize. However, I don't want my proportions to be constrained. Now what that means is that by default, when you drag these guys, Canva constrains the proportion. It keeps the length and the height relative to one another at all times. Now we can change that by holding the shift key as we drag. And now I can squish it or stretch it or make it do whatever I want. And I do want this to be just a little bit longer than it originally was so that I really have some space for my text to run across the page. There we go. You don't want to overdo that because if you do, it's going to start to look a little distorted. Like you'll see here, oh, that just doesn't look right. And in the other direction won't really, whoops, there we go, won't really work either. So just give it a little bit of a tweak. Feel free to play around. Just don't go overboard. Be a little more conservative. Alrighty. And let's make sure that's centered. I'm using my arrow keys again. And now we can grab our text. For that, we go back to the toolbar and hit the text tab. Now you can use any one of these shortcuts. The only problem is that their editing capabilities is a little limited. So for an example, you see I have this here, which can work really nicely for some purposes. I can change the text, I can even change the color, or rather I can change what the text says. And I can change the font as well, but I can't, for example, just grab this and delete it. The only thing I can really delete is the whole thing. And that's exactly why we're going up here to the bare bones options. These do have a bit of formatting. So for example, this kind of has a bit of formatting that you might use for a headline or a title, and this one is more of a subtitle, and then you have your body text. For this one, we want it to be nice and prominent. So let's go with a big old headline. Excellent, just drag that into place. Now this one's a little harder to drag because if you hit the text on the inside, you can't really select on the inside because that'll just, whatever you do there, it just applies to the text. So you have to kind of grab it by the outside, by one of the outside edges, and move it around that way. Awesome. Now I'm going to use these formatting options up here just to get it to where I really want it. This drop down arrow is the only one that's a little hidden, but you can pop that open, and all of these are pretty self-explanatory. For some reason I can't really view them all right now. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Just have to scroll down, and I'm going to center my alignment. I'm going to change the color so that it's a little more prominent, create a little bit more contrast, but not just go with the predetermined options. I want to make my own by hitting that plus sign. Okay, and now that I've created my own color, you see that it was added to the color palette, which is really convenient because we can use it again later. Let's enter the name of our blog post. It's going to be Business Benefits of Meditation, because that is totally something I would write about. I'm gonna make this text box a little broader. There we go, and I'm going to make the line height a little bit more reduced. So go back to that arrow, go to text spacing, and reduce that line height. Just be mindful of letters that drop below the baseline. So for example, if you had a G here or a Y, would it hit the highest, the tallest letter of the line under it? So for example, if I had one here, No, that pretty much clears it. So that's just one little thing that you want to be mindful of when you're playing with line height. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. I'm not crazy about the gray though. Let me just make that a little bit more of a beige so it matches the background. There we go. You always want to have different matching. You always want the palette to sort of be consistent throughout the image. So that's looking pretty good. Let's get some more info since that's what it's really about. We do want the graphics to be the star of the show because ultimately it is a graphic, but we can get plenty of info in there nonetheless. I'm grabbing these round text holders and just placing those around my image. Excellent. Okay, great. So now that I've got those in place, I'm gonna grab some more text. So let's go back over here, and this time I'll go with a sub-headline font. Now it doesn't have to stay that small, it doesn't have to stay that font, or it doesn't have to stay the same font. We can always change it. This is just a starting point for us. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's make it a little more fun. And there we can say new blog post. Alright, center that, just the size, and give it a little twist using this option down here. And bring it back. It's a little hard to grab these edges, but once you get it, put it over the text box evenly. I really like this formatting, so I don't want to have to do that all over again. What I can actually do is just hit Option on my Mac, and you would hit Control on a PC. And while I hold that, just click and drag. And bam! We have an exact replica of that original text box. And now just rotate it in the other direction so that we have a nice balance and give it some new information. So for example, here we could say the date of that blog post so that people know they're not looking at an outdated post. Excellent. Center that once again. Come on now. There we go. All right. So now we have the image just as we want it, which is perfect, and we could go ahead straight to download. We use this download button up here. We don't need to get fancy with this high quality PDF. We could just grab it as an image. Canva is going to prepare that automatic download for us, and it's also going to give us a download link just in case it doesn't automatically download. So that's that for this one. I'll see you guys in the next video.